Greetings, Lore Masters. Tonight, our chronicle covers the unsung heroes of your domestic life in Skyrim, the stewards who guard your hearth, hold your gold, and ensure your cow doesn't get carried off by a passing giant while you're out saving the world. We are looking at the 15 most capable guardians for your Hearthfire estates, focusing on those who can actually hold a line when the bandits come knocking. Imagine the smell of fresh-cut pine in Falkreath, or the biting salt air of the Jarlmarch swamp. You've built a home with your own two hands, hammering iron nails into quarried stone until your stamina bar was permanently depleted. But a home in Skyrim is a beacon for trouble. It's a giant target painted on the map that says, "Here lies the Dragonborn's loot." Let's be honest, you probably wouldn't survive a trip to Cold Harbour, or even a trip to the corner store, without some serious enchanted gear and a bodyguard who doesn't mind taking an arrow to the knee on your behalf. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Go ahead and post your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing just how far our little guild of insomniacs stretches across the globe. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. We begin our assessment in the dense evergreen forests of Falkreath Hold. This is arguably the most picturesque of the 3 plots of land available for purchase, known as Lakeview Manor. It sits perched on a ridge overlooking the shimmering surface of Lake Ilia, framed by the bleeding expanse of the pine forest. It is idyllic, peaceful, and absolutely crawling with things that want to murder you. To the north lies Pine Watch, a literal bandit stronghold disguised as a cottage. Just down the hill, a conjurer practices dark arts on a sacrificial altar, and let's not forget the local wolf pack that seems to respawn every time you fast travel home. For a property this dangerous, you do not want a steward who cowers in the cellar. You need a whirlwind of steel. You need Rayya. Rayya is unique among the ranks of housecarls. She's a red guard, appointed to you by Jarl Siggeir upon your ascension to the title of Thane of Falkreath. Now, Siggeir is a man whose laziness is legendary, even by the low standards of Skyrim's nobility. He's the sort of leader who would outsource breathing if he could find a way to pay for it. But in assigning Rayya to your service, he made a surprisingly astute tactical decision. Or perhaps he just wanted the terrifying woman with the curved swords out of his longhouse so he could drink his mead in peace. When you first meet Rayya, she is standing at attention in the Jarl's longhouse, distinct from the local Nords in her Alika hood and scaled armour. But what truly sets her apart, and what lands her the opening spot on our list, is her combat class. Rayya is the only housecarl in the entire game who comes equipped with dual scimitars and the AI behaviour to use them effectively. While most housecarls are programmed as generic warriors, who favour a shield and a one-handed weapon, or perhaps a greatsword, Rayya is built for aggression. She doesn't block, she overwhelms. When a group of hired thugs shows up at your Lakeview Manor door, intent on teaching you a lesson for stealing that sweet roll 3 weeks ago, Rayya does not wait for them to strike. She charges. Picture the scene. The moon is high over Lake Ilia. You're inside, perhaps arranging your display cases or baking garlic bread in the oven you crafted from iron ingots. Outside, the crunch of leather boots on snow breaks the silence. 3 bandits approach the carriage driver, weapons drawn. Before you can even unsheath your weapon, the front door bursts open. Rayya descends the stairs like a force of nature. In the pale light, the twin scimitars are blurred arcs of motion. The Redguard fighting style, heavily influenced by the martial traditions of Hammerfell, emphasizes speed and fluidity. She creates a kill zone in front of her, a spinning dervish of blades that forces enemies to stay back or lose a limb. It is a messy, chaotic, and incredibly effective form of defense for a homestead that lacks city walls. There is a grim efficiency to the way she dispatches threats. One bandit attempts to raise a hide shield, but the dual-wield power attack, a mechanic Rayya utilizes frequently, shatters his stamina. The first blade knocks the shield aside, the second bites deep into the leather armour at the shoulder. It's gory, certainly, but in a way that feels almost rhythmic, like the chopping of wood for the fire. The bandit falls not with a scream but with a gurgle, sinking into the soft earth of your garden. This brings us to our first core in-game fact of the evening. To maximise Rayya's potential as a steward and guardian, you must understand her inventory management. By default, she carries 2 scimitars. However, if you give her a shield, her AI might prioritise blocking, which negates her primary advantage. The game logic struggles between her dual-wield preference and the generic defend command. Experienced players know to strip her of shields entirely and instead fortify her with enchanted light armor and 2 high-quality one-handed weapons, perhaps Daedric or Dragonbone swords, to replace her standard steel scimitars. When properly outfitted, she becomes a blender for high-level intruders. However, Rayya's presence in Falkreath raises some interesting questions for the law-minded individual. Why is a Redguard serving a Nord Jarl in a hold that borders Cyrodiil, not Hammerfell? An obscure lore tidbit found in the game files and developer notes suggests that Rayya was a relatively late addition to the Hearthfire DLC development. Unlike the base game, housecarls like Lydia or Iona, Rayya does not have a sleep package in the Jarl's Longhouse before you purchase the land. She simply stands there, vigilant, sleepless. This has led to the discovery that her class identifier is actually warrior, but with specific tweaks to her aggression stats that are usually reserved for dual-wielding bandits or forsworn ravagers. She's essentially a bandit boss reprogrammed to love you. This technical distinction explains why she's so much more prone to initiating combat than her peers. Her code is literally itching for a fight. But her loyalty is where the community starts to whisper. There is a persistent fan theory regarding Rayya's true allegiance. Jarl Siggeir is known to have dealings with bandits. He essentially admits to taking cuts of their profits in exchange for turning a blind eye. If you kill the bandit leader at Pinewatch, you find a letter implicating someone in power. Fans debate whether Rayya was originally one of Siggeir's enforcers, a cleaner he used to keep his criminal partners in line. When you become Thane, he hands her off to you, perhaps as a spy to keep tabs on the Dragonborn, or perhaps because she knows too much, and he hopes you'll lead her to her death in a Dwemer ruin. It is a dark thought, isn't it? As she stands on your porch, watching the sun set over the lake, is she contemplating the beauty of the landscape, or calculating exactly how much your armour would sell for in the Riften markets? Yet, regardless of her origins, her utility at Lakeview Manor is undeniable. The geography of the Lakeview plot is tricky. Attacks can come from the road, from the woods behind the stable, or even from the lake itself if you have slaughterfish mods installed, and let's be honest, who hurts themselves like that? A standard shield bearer can only face one direction. Rayya's dual wielding allows her to engage multiple targets. She can parry a blow to her left while slashing to her right. Furthermore, a steward's job isn't just killing, it is logistics. Rayya, with her stern, no-nonsense voice, seems perfectly suited for the administrative side of homesteading. When you ask her to buy lumber or stone, there is a sense that she isn't just handing over gold. She is negotiating. She's likely staring down the mill owner in Falkreath until he throws in an extra log just to get her to stop looking at him. She manages your cows, your chickens and your horse with the same discipline she applies to combat. You can imagine the chickens marching in formation under her watch. There is also a sensory comfort in having her at Lakeview. The Falkreath forest is wet. It rains often. A thick grey drizzle that soaks into the thatch and chills the bone. Rayya, hailing from the deserts of Hammerfell, often complains about the cold in her idle dialogue. It adds a layer of realism to the experience. She isn't a robot. She is a person displaced, doing a job in a climate she hates, which somehow makes her dedication to guarding your property even more impressive. She stands in the rain, water dripping from her hood, scimitars rusted slightly at the hilts if you haven't upgraded them, watching the tree line for the glowing eyes of a vampire thrall. The vampires, by the way, are the true test of a Hearthfire steward. With the Dawnguard expansion active, traveller vampires will occasionally visit your home. These are not mindless zombies, they are powerful mages and warriors. A vampire attack at Lakeview is a chaotic affair of drain life spells and summoned gargoyles. In this specific scenario, Rayya's aggression is a lifesaver. Vampires often target your other animals or your bard. Poor Llewellyn the Nightingale, who is useless in a fight and mostly just cowers behind the loot. Rayya draws aggro instantly. Her high damage output forces the vampire to focus on her, sparing your livestock and your non-combatant NPCs, because she doesn't use a shield, she takes damage, yes. But her adrenaline rush racial ability, while not explicitly active as a player-controlled power, seems echoed in her high stamina regeneration, allowing her to keep power attacking long after a Nord housecarl would be winded. As we wrap up our look at the Sentinel of Lakeview, consider the aesthetic she brings. A heavy armour set, perhaps dwarven or orcish, contrasts beautifully with the curved blades. She looks like a mercenary king's bodyguard standing sentinel on your porch. She is the iron gate that keeps the wilderness at bay. Whether she's a former bandit enforcer or a loyal servant of the crown, she is the barrier between your family and the horrors of the pine forest. But Falkreath is not the only hold where the land is treacherous. To the north, in the salt marshes of Hjalmarch, the dangers are less about brute force and more about the creeping cold and the ancient dead. And for that you need a different kind of protector. You need someone who understands magic as well as steel. If Falkreath is the idyllic, deceptive beauty of Skyrim, then Hjalmarch is its rotting, waterlogged corpse. The land here does not pretend to be welcoming. It is a vast, sinking morass of fog and dead trees, where the water tastes of sulphur and the air hangs heavy with the scent of decay. Your property here, Windstad Manor, sits on the edge of this desolate swamp, staring out at the icy expanse of the Sea of Ghosts. It is a place for a sorcerer, a necromancer, or a hermit who truly hates company. But company will find you. Chorus reapers skitter up from the mud banks. Draugr drag themselves out of the nearby Highgate ruins, and the giant spiders. Let's just say you'll want to check your boots before you put them on in the morning. To guard a home in this cursed wetland, a simple warrior is insufficient. You need a protector who can match the supernatural hostility of the environment. You need Valdemar. Valdemar is the housecarl assigned to you by Jarl Idgrod Ravencrone of Morthal. Idgrod is a seer, a woman plagued by visions, and her court is one of the strangest in Skyrim. It follows, then, that her choice of guardian for you would be equally unconventional. Valdemar is a battlemage, a rare archetype among followers, and arguably the most tactically diverse steward available in the Hearthfire expansion. Visually, he appears like any other Nord warrior, typically clad in scaled armour when you first meet him in High Moon Hall. But do not let the generic appearance fool you. Valdemar is a walking conduit of frost magic. While other housecarls swing swords, Valdemar casts Ice Spike and Ice Storm with a proficiency that can freeze a giant in its tracks. This brings us to the core in-game fact that defines his utility. Valdemar is one of the few followers who correctly utilises a spell sword combat style. He will equip heavy armour, if you give it to him, to tank physical damage, while simultaneously blasting enemies with destruction magic from his offhand. He softens targets at range before closing in to finish them with a mace or war axe. This hybrid approach is devastating in the open terrain of the Hjalmarch swamp. Imagine a group of bandits trudging through the knee-deep water toward your fish hatchery. They are slow, bogged down by the mud. A standard warrior steward would have to run out to meet them, getting their boots wet and potentially getting surrounded. Valdemar simply steps onto the dock. He raises a hand and a shard of jagged ice as thick as a spear launches across the water. The sound is distinct, a sharp crack like a glacier fracturing. The lead bandit takes the spike to the chest. The impact staggers him, the frost slowing his movement speed by 50%. Before his friends can react, Valdemar has already cast again. By the time the bandits reach the shore, they are half frozen, their stamina drained by the biting cold, making them easy pickings for Valdemar's mace. It is a brutally effective strategy for perimeter defense, but there is a downside, a quirk in his coding that has frustrated many a Thane. Valdemar's default armour is light armour, scaled, yet his skill set is heavily weighted toward heavy armour. This is a classic Bethesda oversight. If you leave him in his default gear, he is squishy. He will fold like a wet napkin under sustained heavy attacks. To make him the battle mage of the mortal swamp he was born to be, you must intervene. You need to gift him a full set of enchanted heavy armour. Ebony or Daedric works wonders, to sync with his actual skill tree. Once you do, he becomes a juggernaut. But let's talk about the man himself. Valdemar has a personality that fits the dreary atmosphere of Hjalmarch. He is not boisterous like the companions or grumpy like the steward of Riften. He is professional, almost clinically so. Yet, there is a dark humour to his placement in Morthal. The name Valdemar has roots in Old Norse, roughly translating to famous, ruler, or power of the ocean. It's ironic, then, that he spends his days guarding a swamp shack next to a fish farm. There is an obscure lore tidbit hidden in the game's relationship data that adds a layer of intrigue to Valdemar. Unlike most housecarls who have neutral or positive relationships with their jarls, Valdemar's relationship rank with Idgrod Ravencrone's children, specifically Yorick and Idgrod the Younger, is unusually high. Some lore divers speculate he wasn't just a guard, but a tutor or a dedicated protector for the jarl's strange, vision-afflicted family. This feeds into a fan theory that Valdemar himself possesses a latent sensitivity to magic, which is why he gravitated toward the spellsword path rather than pure martial combat. Morthal is a place of magic, fear, and superstition. The Jarl sees the future. The town is threatened by vampires. A simple guard wouldn't last. Valdemar had to adapt, to learn the very forces that threaten the hold in order, to fight them. Did he learn his frost magic to counter the vampires of Movarth's lair? Vampires have a natural resistance to frost, which makes his choice of element interesting. Perhaps he learned it to slow them down, to freeze them before they could turn into mist and vanish. Living at Windstad Manor with Valdemar creates a very specific vibe. The fog in Jarlmarch is relentless. It obscures vision, turning trees into grasping claws. Having a steward who glows with the aura of an active Stoneflesh spell, which he will cast for defense, provides a literal beacon in the gloom. Let's visualize a night attack at Windstad. You're busy at your alchemy table, mixing blisterwort and wheat. The sound of Shorus clicking echoes from the dark. You step out onto the balcony. Below, in the swirling mist, you see the blue glow of magic. Valdemar is engaging a Chorus Reaper. The monster spits poison, a corrosive bile that melts stone. Valdemar strafes, heavy boots splashing in the muck. He casts an ice spike that shatters the creature's chitinous shell. The gore here is distinct. The Chorus explodes in a shower of blue ichor and frozen shell fragments. It is visceral. Valdemar doesn't celebrate. He simply sheathes his mace, the ice melting from his hands, and returns to his patrol. He is a grim warden for a grim land. There is another practical reason Valdemar reigns supreme in Jarlmarch: giants. Windstad Manor is notoriously prone to giant visits. Giants have massive health pools and can launch you into the stratosphere with a single club slam. A melee steward is at a severe disadvantage against a giant. They run in, get stomped, and spend the rest of the fight kneeling on the ground, gasping for air. Valdemar, however, has range. He can aggro the giant from the porch. As the giant lumbers toward the house, Valdemar pelts him with ice. The Deep Freeze perk, if you use mods or high-level tweaks to unlock follower potentials, can even paralyze the giant when his health gets low. But even without that, the constant stamina drain from the frost spells means the giant can't power attack as often. Valdemar essentially kites the most dangerous enemy in the game, protecting your cows and your dignity. But we must address the Hearthfire glitch that plagues Valdemar specifically. Due to a pathfinding error, Valdemar has a tendency to get stuck in the fish hatchery. You'll come home looking for him to collect your share of the farm profits, and you'll find him standing waist-deep in the water staring at a salmon. Is he fishing? Is he contemplating the futility of existence? Or is the nav mesh just broken? Let's be honest, we've all spent hours trying to nudge a follower out of a doorway. Finding your steward meditating in the fish pond is just part of the Bethesda charm. Despite the wet boots, his presence is invaluable. He is the only steward who feels like a true magical guardian, in a land where the threats are supernatural, ghosts from the shipwreck, Draugr from the barrow. Having a guy who can punch a ghost with a magical ice fist is comforting. His dialogue is standard housecarl fare. Honour to you, my Thane, but delivered with a slightly deeper, more resonant voice tone than the others. It commands respect. When he says he will guard the house with his life, you believe him. He isn't just a meat shield. He is a magical turret deployed on your front lawn. Finally, consider the synergy with your own build. If you're playing a mage, having Valdemar is like having an apprentice. You can stand on the balcony raining down firebolts while he applies frost from the ground. The combination of fire and ice, thermal shock, isn't a game mechanic, but it feels right. It feels cinematic. If you are a warrior, he covers your weakness. You handle the physical threats, he handles the ranged and magical ones. He is the perfect complement to any playstyle, provided you fix his armour, as the fog rolls in off the sea of ghosts and the lights of solitude flicker in the distance across the water. Valdemar stands watch. He is the battlemage of the swamp, the blue light in the grey mist, the one-man army keeping the Chorus at bay. He is without a doubt the best choice for the damp, dark solitude of Windstad Manor. But not everyone wants to live in a swamp. Some prefer the blinding white expanse of the north, the snowy plains of the Pale, and for that harsh, unforgiving landscape, you need a shield that cannot be broken. You need a warrior who embodies the unyielding nature of the ice itself. In the northern reaches of Skyrim, the wind doesn't just blow, it scours. The Pale is a region defined by its harshness, a sweeping, snow-blind tundra where the only things that thrive are giants, woolly mammoths, and the hardiest of Nords. Your homestead here, Heljarchen Hall, is a fortress against the elements. It sits exposed on a rise, offering breathtaking views of the Dragon's Reach to the south and the forbidding ruins of Mzinchalev to the north. But beauty here is cold, and survival is a daily negotiation with frostbite. To hold ground in the Pale, you do not need finesse. You do not need fancy spells or dual-wielding gymnastics. You need a wall, you need mass and muscle, you need Gregor. Gregor is the housecarl bestowed upon you by the Jarl of Dawnstar, usually Skuld the Elder, a man whose senility is only matched by his paranoia. Skuld demands loyalty and strength, and in Gregor he has provided the latter in spades. Gregor is a brute force solution to the delicate problem of home security. At first glance, Gregor looks like a standard Nord warrior, perhaps a bit broader in the shoulder than most. He wears steel plate armour by default, giving him a solid metallic bulk. But his true value lies in his combat specialisation. Gregor is the premier two-handed specialist among the Hearthfire housecarls. While Rayya slices and Valdemar blasts, Gregor crushes. He favours greatswords, battle axes and warhammers. This distinction is critical because of the damage mechanics in Skyrim. Two-handed weapons deal massive burst damage. A single swing from a warhammer ignores a percentage of the enemy's armour, with the right perks, which his high skill level emulates. When a giant, and trust me, Heljarchen Hall is basically a giant rest stop, strolls onto your property, you need high burst damage to stagger him before he can launch your cow into orbit. This brings us to our core in-game fact for Gregor, his level cap and health pool. Like most housecarls, Gregor levels with the player up to level 50. However, his stat distribution is heavily skewed toward health and stamina. He is a damage sponge. He can take a hit from a mammoth tusk and keep standing. This makes him the ideal tank steward. If you're a squishy mage or a stealth archer who prefers to stay hidden, Gregor is the distraction you need. He runs in, screams a battle cry and draws the attention of every bandit within a mile radius. The combat aesthetic of Gregor is brutal and satisfying. Let's set the scene. A blizzard is raging outside Heljarchen Hall. Visibility is near zero. You hear the deep, guttural roar of a snowy saber cat, one of the deadliest predators in the game. You rush outside, torch in hand. Through the driving snow you see Gregor. He's wielding a great sword of burning, the flames hissing against the snowflakes. The cat leaps. Gregor doesn't dodge. He meets the charge head-on with a power bash, using the hilt of the massive sword to smash the cat's face. The beast reels back, stunned. Gregor pivots, the heavy steel plate clanking, and brings the blade down in a vertical arc. The sound is a wet crunch. The saber cat is bisected, its white fur stained crimson. Gregor shakes the blood from his blade and resumes his patrol, unbothered by the cold or the carnage. Let's be honest, watching Gregor fight is like watching a car crash in slow motion. It's messy, loud, and you can't look away. But there is an oddity to Gregor, an obscure lore tidbit that has baffled players for years. Despite his proficiency with two-handed weapons, his default inventory often includes a one-handed weapon and a shield. This is another classic case of Bethesda's suggestion rather than a rule. If left to his own devices, he might equip a weak sword and board, severely nerfing his damage output. To unlock the unyielding shield of the Pale, you must take away his shield and force a greatsword into his hands. Once you do, his AI seems to wake up, recognizing, yes, this is what I was made for. Fans have long debated the backstory of Gregor. He has very little unique dialogue, but his name and appearance have sparked a fan theory that he is not originally from the Pale. The name Gregor is surprisingly imperial, not traditional Nord. Some speculate he is a veteran of the Great War, a Cyrodiilic Nord who returned to his ancestral homeland only to find himself serving a Jarl who hates the Empire. Skuld the Elder is a fervent Stormcloak supporter. Is it possible that Gregor is a political prisoner of sorts, assigned to the Dragonborn to get him out of Dawnstar, where his imperial name might offend the Jarl's sensibilities? It adds a layer of tragic stoicism to his character. He serves dutifully in a land that might view him with suspicion, guarding a house in the middle of nowhere. He is the exile on the frontier, finding purpose in the simple act of protection. Heljarchen Hall has unique threats that make Gregor's skill set essential. The property is located very close to the giant camp at Blizzard Rest. Giants are peaceful if left alone, but their pathfinding often takes them right through your chicken coop. Gregor's two-handed stagger chance is the only reliable way for an NPC to interrupt a giant's attack animation. Furthermore, the Pale is home to high-level bandits. The Silver Hand often patrol these snowy plains, hunting werewolves. If you are a werewolf, and let's face it, being a companion is a rite of passage, these guys will come for you. They carry silver weapons and are resistant to disease. Gregor, with his heavy armour and massive damage, cleaves through Silver Hand members like they are made of paper. He doesn't care about silver, he cares about steel. Living with Gregor is quiet, he isn't a chatterbox. The wind howls so loud in the Pale that you probably couldn't hear him anyway. But there is a solidity to his presence. When you come home from a long dungeon, crawl, laden with dragon bones, seeing Gregor chopping wood in the snow is grounding. He is a constant. The weather changes, the dragons return, the war rages, but Gregor is always there, sharpening his axe. He is also surprisingly good at the domestic side of things. Maybe it's the soldier's discipline. When you ask him to improve the house, he does it without complaint. "I'll see it done, my Thane," and it gets done, no fuss. One specific interaction highlights his value, the random dragon attack. Dragons love the Pale. There is nowhere to hide, no trees, no cliffs to duck under. It is open sky. When a frost dragon swoops down, blasting the ground with ice, Gregor is in his element. He has high frost resistance, being a Nord, and enough health to face tank a breath attack. While the dragon is on the ground, Gregor is right in its face, hacking at its snout. This keeps the dragon grounded, allowing you to flank it or rain arrows from a distance. He is the anvil, you are the hammer. As the northern lights, the aurora borealis, dance over the roof of Heljarchen Hall, bathing the snow in ethereal green and purple light, Gregor stands guard. He's a silhouette of steel against the glowing sky. He is the unyielding shield of the Pale, the reason you can sleep soundly despite the giants and the wolves. He is simple, effective, and brutally strong. But what if you crave the classics? What if you want the original, the icon, the one who swore to carry your burdens before you even knew what a burden was? We leave the freezing north now and return to the heart of the province, to Whiterun, to revisit the legend herself, Whiterun, the trading hub of Skyrim, the city of Gildergreen and Cloud District jokes. It is the first major hold most adventurers truly explore, and it is here, within the smoky halls of Dragon's Reach, that you meet the gold standard of housecarls. She is the meme, the myth, the pack mule. She is Lydia. To discuss the best stewards without mentioning Lydia is heresy. She is the first shield for a reason. For many of us, she was our first follower, our first tank, and the first person we accidentally shouted off a cliff. But nostalgia aside, Lydia is a genuinely formidable choice for a Hearthfire steward, particularly for those who value classic, reliable defense. Lydia is a housecarl in the truest sense. She's a heavy armor warrior with a proficiency in one-handed weapons and shields. This is the sword and board archetype, the bread and butter of Skyrim's combat AI. It is stable, it works. Unlike dual-wielders who might get stun-locked, or mages who might run out of magicka, Lydia's combat loop is simple. Block, bash, slash. Repeat until the enemy stops moving. This brings us to the core in-game fact that makes her a top-tier steward, her level scaling and essential status, mostly. In the vanilla game, Lydia caps at level 50 like the others, but her health scaling is robust. More importantly, she is protected. This means enemies cannot kill her. Only you can. Unless you carelessly fling a fireball into the melee, or clip her with a stray arrow, she will simply take a knee when her health reaches 0, catch her breath, and get back up. For a steward guarding a home while you're away, or while you're watching helplessly, this resilience is key. She is the ultimate survivor. But let's talk about her gear. Lydia comes equipped with her signature steel armor and a steel shield. It's iconic, sure, but if you want her to truly shine as a steward, you need to upgrade her. Give her a set of dwarven or orcish armour, and she becomes a walking tank. The clank, clank, clank of her patrol is the sound of safety. There is an obscure lore tidbit regarding Lydia's behaviour that many players miss. In the game files, Lydia has specific dialogue flags that are triggered by the player's behaviour. If you are constantly knocking items over or making a mess in your house, she will actually sigh more often. It's a subtle piece of environmental storytelling that suggests she isn't just a mindless guard, she is judging you. She is the long-suffering roommate who cleans up your dragon bones and arranges your cheese wheels. This leads to the massive fan theory community surrounding her. Is Lydia sarcastic? When she says, "I am sworn to carry your burdens," is it a pledge of solemn duty? Or is she passive-aggressively commenting on the fact that you just handed her 37 dragon scales and a rusted iron dagger? The delivery is deadpan perfection. Most fans lean toward the interpretation that she is fiercely loyal, but incredibly tired of your shenanigans. She has seen you eat raw ingredients to learn their effects. She has watched you jump up mountains instead of using the path. And yet, she stands guard. Assigning Lydia to a Hearthfire home, perhaps Lakeview, if you didn't pick Reya or maybe Heljarchen, feels like a promotion. She spends the early game sleeping in a small room in Bree's home, or sitting in your bedroom watching you sleep, which is creepy but devoted. Giving her a manor to run is a reward for her service. In combat, Lydia is a sticky tank. Her AI is aggressive enough to engage enemies but defensive enough to hold their attention. When a giant attacks, Lydia will raise her shield. The giant slams his club down, a lesser follower would fly. Lydia staggers, grunts, and immediately counters with a shield bash. This stagger effect is crucial. It interrupts the enemy's rhythm. She buys you time. Let's be honest, we've all used Lydia as bait. You go stand there and look, tasty, while I sneak around back with a bow. And she does it, every single time. Her utility extends beyond combat. Lydia is the archetype of the Nord woman. She fits the aesthetic of a traditional Skyrim homestead perfectly. Seeing her sit at the head of the dining table drinking mead feels right. She interacts well with children if you have adopted any, offering a stern but protective presence. "I'll kill anyone who tries to hurt you," might sound intense for a nanny, but in Skyrim it's exactly what you want to hear. However, there is a known bug, or feature, with Lydia. If she dies, by your hand usually, and you leave her body, it might eventually disappear, or it might show up at your wedding. Yes, there are reports of Lydia's corpse attending the player's wedding ceremony, flopping onto the floor of the Temple of Mara. It's a grim reminder of her dedication. "Till death do us part" apparently wasn't specific enough for her, but assuming she is alive, Lydia is the safe bet. She's the Honda Civic of stewards, reliable, low maintenance, and capable of taking a beating. She doesn't have the magical flair of Valdemar or the dual-wielding DPs of Rayya, but she has consistency. You know exactly what you're getting with Lydia. Imagine a bandit raid on your home. The alarm is raised. You rush out to find Lydia already holding the line at the perimeter fence. She has 3 bandits on her. She blocks a sword with her shield, kicks another bandit in the knee, and tanks an arrow with her heavy cuirass. She isn't flashy. She's efficient. She's the wall that the storm breaks against. There is a comfort in her voice acting too. That familiar "honour to you, my Thane." It grounds the experience. After hours of dealing with Daedric princes and world-ending threats, coming home to Lydia feels like coming back to reality. She is the constant in a chaotic world, and let's not forget her carry weight. As a steward, you don't use her as a mule as often, but the capacity is there. If you need to move your entire library of books from one house to another, Lydia is the one you call. She will complain, but she will carry it. Lydia represents the base game experience refined for the homestead. She connects your humble beginnings in Helgen to your current status as a landed noble. She has been there for the whole journey. Making her the steward of your primary residence is a narrative closing of the circle. So if you want a guard who is tough, loyal, and capable of judging your life choices with a single sentence, Lydia is the choice. She is the first shield, and for many she will always be the best. But perhaps you want someone with a bit more bite. Someone who shares Lydia's training but hails from a city of solitude and discipline. Someone who is less of a shield and more of a sword. We travel now to the capital, to Solitude, to meet the elite. We leave the central plains of Whiterun and travel northwest to the stone arches and imperial majesty of Solitude. This is the capital of Skyrim, the seat of the High King, or what's left of him, and the headquarters of the Imperial Legion. The guards here are better trained, the walls are thicker, and the housecarls are simply sharper. Here, in the shadow of the Blue Palace, we find Jordis the Sword Maiden. If Lydia is the reliable sedan of housecarls, Jordis is the luxury sports model. She is undeniably similar, a Nord warrior with a shield and sword preference, but under the hood, the specs are tuned for higher performance. She is the designated protector for the Thane of Harfingar, a title that requires you to jump through significant hoops, including purchasing the most expensive house in the game, Proudspire Manor. By the time you earn Jordis, you have proven yourself a wealthy and capable adventurer. She reflects that status. Jordis shares the same voice actor as Iona, who we'll meet later, and several other aggressive female Nords, giving her a tone that is distinct from Lydia's resigned duty. Jordis sounds eager. When she says, "I am your sword and your shield," it sounds less like a contractual obligation and more like a threat to anyone standing in front of her. The core in-game fact that sets Jordis apart is her stats relative to her peers. While most housecarls share a similar level cap, 50, Jordis typically spawns with slightly higher starting stats in heavy armour and archery, depending on the level at which you unlock her. She is built like a brick privy. Her aggression level is also tuned high. Jordis does not wait for the enemy to strike first. She's proactive. Let's picture her guarding your Hearthfire estate, say Heljarchen Hall, as it fits the snowy northern aesthetic she's used to. A group of hired thugs approaches. Jordis doesn't just block, she closes the distance. She utilises the bashing mechanic frequently, slamming her shield into enemies to stagger them, then following up with a power attack. Her name is Sword Maiden, and she lives up to it. She is a duelist. There is a distinct cleanliness to her combat style. She fights like a soldier of the capital, not a brawler. Her movements feel drilled, disciplined. She is the result of formal training in the Castle Dower courtyard. This makes her an excellent choice for players who want their homestead to feel like a military outpost rather than a farmhouse. With Jordis on patrol, your property feels secure, regulated. An obscure lore tidbit involves her dialogue. Jordis is one of the few followers who will actively comment on the finery of her surroundings, if placed in a well-decorated home. While not a complex mechanic, her idle chatter package seems to trigger more often in high-value areas. She fits the role of a steward for a wealthy dragonborn. She isn't out of place among expensive furniture and display cases filled with Daedric artifacts. Fans have long debated the blonde clone theory. Jordis, despite her unique name and stats, looks remarkably similar to a generic Nord preset. Some fans theorise that the Jarls of Skyrim have a specific look they prefer for their elite guards. Blonde, blue-eyed, sturdy. Is it a branding thing? The Jarl's elite. Or maybe the character designer just hit copy-paste and went to lunch. Regardless, the community has embraced her as the upgrade. If you're tired of Lydia's attitude, you get Jordis. She is Lydia 2.0. However, Jordis has a quirk. She is fanatically devoted to the concept of the Thane. Her dialogue is peppered with titles. My Thane? For the Thane. It borders on zealotry. This makes her the perfect steward for a dragonborn who roleplays as a nobleman or a warlord. She feeds your ego. She isn't just guarding your house, she is guarding your legacy. In terms of equipment, Jordis excels with high-end gear. She looks absolutely terrifying in a full set of Nordic carved armour from the Dragonborn DLC. The heavy fur-lined steel matches her blonde hair and the snowy backdrop of Solitude or the Pale. Give her a dragon-bone sword, and she becomes a whirlwind of destruction. Let's be honest, giving Jordis a legendary weapon feels like handing a chainsaw to a professional lumberjack. She knows exactly what to do with it, and the results are spectacular. One specific scenario where Jordis shines is the defense against cultists. Once you trigger the Dragonborn DLC, Mirax cultists will seek you out. They use fire magic and summoned seekers. Jordis, with her high health pool and aggressive staggering, can disrupt their casting. She gets in their faces, forcing them to switch to daggers, where she has the overwhelming advantage. She effectively shuts down mages by denying them the space to cast. Her stewardship is also impeccable. She has a crisp, authoritative tone when discussing business. I have ordered the stone you requested. It sounds like a military report. She runs your house like a barracks. Everything's in order. The cow is fed. The chickens are accounted for. The bard is terrified but singing on key. There is a downside, of course. To get Jordis, you have to spend 25,000 gold on Proudspire Manor. She is an investment. But for a Hearthfire home, you can simply ask her to move. She leaves the safety of solitude to live in your handmade shack in the wilderness. That is loyalty. Imagine the contrast. She comes from the most cosmopolitan city in Skyrim, where she slept in a stone basement in a massive mansion. Now she's at Lakeview Manor, fighting off wolves and sleeping in a wooden bed. Yet she never complains. She treats the defence of your chicken coop with the same gravity as the defence of the Blue Palace. Jordis is the professional. She is the steward you choose when you want zero nonsense. No dark backstories, no magical quirks, just pure high-grade Nordic steel and a shield arm. That never tires. She's the elite guard, and she makes your home feel like a fortress. But maybe you don't want a soldier. Maybe you want someone scarier. Someone who watches from the shadows. Someone who hails from the crime capital of Skyrim, where survival requires a certain ruthlessness. We head southeast to the golden autumn forests of the Rift. From the disciplined, stone-walled order of solitude, we descend into the golden, decaying beauty of the Rift. Here, the leaves are permanently turning, the mist clings to the water, and the city of Riften sits on the lake like a wooden spiderweb, rotting from the inside out. In a hold defined by thieves, corruption, and the Blackbriar family, trust is a currency more valuable than gold, and the protector assigned to you here reflects that hard reality. Meet Iona, the Grim Watcher of the Rift. Iona is the housecarl for the Thane of Riften. To earn her, you must navigate the complex politics of the city, likely doing favours for a Jarl who is blissfully unaware that her city is run by a meadery matriarch, or perhaps you've engaged in the skooma trade cleanup operations. Regardless of how you get the title, the reward is Iona. And if Lydia is the weary shield and Jordis is the eager sword, Iona is the knife in the dark. Visually, Iona strikes a severe figure. In the vanilla game, she has a harder, more weathered face than her counterparts. She doesn't have the softness of a fresh recruit. She looks like someone who has seen things in the Ratway that would make a grown Nord cry. Her voice, while sharing the same actor as Jordis, often feels delivered with a sharper edge in this context. When she draws her weapon, the battle cry seems to carry a genuine malice. This brings us to the core in-game fact regarding her utility. Iona is technically a clone of the housecarl class. Heavy armour, one-handed, shield. But because Riften is a mid to high level zone compared to Whiterun, Iona often spawns at a higher level bracket when you first meet her, depending on when you arrive. But the real key is her aggression setting. While game data shows standard housecarl aggression, anecdotal evidence from thousands of players suggests Iona has a hair trigger. She's notoriously prone to attacking friendly NPCs if they so much as sneeze in your direction during a brawl. She's the bouncer who throws the patron through the window before asking for their ID. Guard duty at a Hearthfire home requires this level of zero tolerance. Let's place her at Lakeview Manor, or perhaps the Tundra Homestead if you have the Creation Club content. But let's stick to the core three. Put her at Windstad. The gloomy swamp matches her personality. Imagine a group of travellers, vampires in disguise, approaching your door. Most stewards will wait for them to turn hostile. Iona seems to sense the intent. As soon as the red dot appears on the compass, she is moving. She doesn't shout a warning, she executes. Her fighting style is brutal efficiency. She is a meat grinder. She bashes with the shield not just to block, but to crush. There is a specific interaction that highlights her ruthlessness. If you are a member of the Thieves Guild, which you likely are if you're Thane of Riften, you might have a bounty. Bounty hunters will occasionally track you down. Iona, despite being a court-appointed official, will slaughter these bounty hunters without hesitation. Her loyalty to the Thane overrides the law. She is the corrupted cop on your payroll. This leads to a fascinating fan theory. Who does Iona really work for? The Jarl of Riften, Layla Lawgiver, is a puppet. The real power is Maven Blackbriar. Many fans speculate that Iona was originally one of Maven's personal guards, or a plant intended to keep an eye on the rising Dragonborn. Maven likes control. Would she really let an uncontrollable variable like the Dragonborn operate in her city without a handler? Iona's grim demeanour and absolute competence fit the profile of a Blackbriar agent. It adds a layer of tension to your home. Is she guarding you, or is she waiting for the order to remove you? Keep your friends close, and your housecarls closer, as the saying goes. However, assuming her loyalty is yours, she is terrifyingly effective against the wildlife of the Rift and beyond. The Rift is bear country. Cave bears are fast, hit like trucks, and have a distressing amount of health. Iona is a natural bear hunter. She stands her ground. When a bear rears up to slam down, Iona steps into the guard, absorbing the blow on her shield and thrusting upward. It is a violent, primal dance. She understands that in the wild, hesitation is death. Living with Iona is intense. She's not the chatty type. Her dialogue is sparse. "What do you need?" she asks, and the tone suggests that whatever you need, it better be important. She isn't there to be your friend. She is there to ensure you don't die. This makes her an excellent steward for players who prefer a darker, more serious roleplay. If you are a necromancer or a Dark Brotherhood listener, Iona fits the aesthetic. She doesn't judge the pile of skulls in the basement. She just asks if you want her to organise them by size. Let's be honest, having Iona patrol your property is like having a guard dog that you are slightly afraid of. You know she won't bite you probably, but the mailman is definitely in danger. An obscure lore tidbit regarding her initial station. Before you move her, Iona guards Honeyside. Honeyside is unique because it has a direct access door to the world outside Riften's walls. This means Iona is the only housecarl who, by default, guards a back door that bypasses city guards. She's accustomed to operating on the fringe, watching the unmonitored exits. This makes her uniquely qualified for the isolation of a Hearthfire manor. She knows that out here, there are no city guards to call for help. She is the only line of defence. In terms of gear, Iona looks imposing in ebony. The dark metal suits her grim personality. If you give her a Daedric mace, the jagged, cruel design matches her vibe perfectly. She becomes a dark knight, a sentinel of the shadows. One of the best uses for Iona is specifically against the giant spiders that plague the swamp and forest areas. Spiders are fast and use poison spit. Iona's aggression means she closes the gap before they can kite you. She smashes the spiders, heedless of the poison. Her high health pool allows her to absorb the toxicity while she physically deconstructs the arachnids. There is a sense of finality with Iona. When the battle is over, she doesn't cheer. She sheathes her weapon and goes back to her patrol route. She is the Grim Watcher. She watches the tree line. She watches the road. She watches you. And as long as she is watching, nothing gets through alive. But perhaps you tire of the standard sword and shield dynamic. Perhaps you want a guardian who brings something older, something wilder to your home. Someone who doesn't just fight the beasts, but carries the spirit of the beast within her blood. We return to Whiterun, not to the Jarl's Court, but to the overturned longboat of Jorvaska. From the shadowy corners of the Rift and the grim duty of Iona, we return to the open plains of Whiterun, but not to the polished floors of Dragon's Reach. Instead, we head up the steps to the oldest building in the city, the overturned longship known as Jorvaska. Here, amidst the smell of roasting meat and the clang of mead tankards, we find a warrior who doesn't just guard against the wild, she is the wild. We are talking about Aela the Huntress. To appoint Aela as the steward of your Hearthfire home is to make a statement. You aren't just hiring a guard, you're inviting a member of the Circle, a high-ranking companion, and a devout worshipper of Hircine to live on your porch. Aela is not a soldier. She's a predator. Aela stands out immediately due to her visual design. She wears the ancient Nord armour, a set usually reserved for the Draugr Deathlords found deep in dusty barrows. On her, however, it is a badge of honour, a connection to the Atmaran ancestors. It exposes enough. Skin to be distracting but provides protection where it counts. But her true value as a steward lies in her combat class. Aela is a thief-class NPC with a massive specialisation in archery. This brings us to the core in-game fact that makes her a tactical genius for home defence. Aela is an expert-level archery trainer. Her AI prefers ranged combat above all else. Most housecarls are melee fighters who will charge blindly into the fray. Aela hangs back. She turns your homestead into a kill box. Imagine you're at Lakeview Manor. A giant is wandering down from the mountain pass. A melee steward like Gregor would run up to the giant and risk getting punted into the stratosphere. Aela, standing on the balcony or the porch, draws her bow. Hopefully, a dragonbone bow you've gifted her. She has the Ranger perk in her combat data, allowing her to move faster with a drawn bow. She kites the enemy. She puts an arrow in the giant's knee, then his shoulder, then his eye, all while maintaining a safe distance. This range superiority is invaluable against dragons. When a dragon circles your house, refusing to land, Lydia is useless. She just yells at the sky. Aela contributes. She's an anti-air turret. Her accuracy is terrifying. She tracks the beast, leading her shots chipping away at its health until it is forced to crash land in your garden. By the time it hits the dirt, it is already half dead, making your job significantly easier. However, Aela comes with baggage. Hairy, snarling baggage. She's a werewolf. While she typically won't transform into a beast form during standard steward defense, unless you use mods to unlock that script, the lore implications are heavy. She considers the beast blood a blessing, not a curse. She's a creature of the moon. This leads to an obscure lore tidbit found in her dialogue files. If you ask her about her family, she mentions her mother was a companion, and her grandmother before her. But she also hints at a lineage that has embraced the beast for generations. Unlike Kodlak Whitemane, who seeks a cure to reach Sovngarde, Aela is content to hunt in Hircine's hunting grounds for eternity. This makes her one of the few followers who fundamentally rejects the traditional Nord afterlife. By making her your steward, you're essentially sanctifying your land to the Daedric Prince of the Hunt. There is a prevalent fan theory that Aela is actually the true leader of the companions, or at least the one who embodies their original spirit. Kodlak is the philosopher, but Aela is the warrior. She pushes the agenda of the Silver Hand extermination. Some fans argue that she manipulates the Dragonborn into becoming the instrument of her vengeance against the werewolf hunters. Is she guarding your house, or is she using your land as a base of operations for her own hunts? Let's be honest, coming home to find Aela cleaning her nails with a dagger while a pile of dead wolves sits in the driveway is the ultimate "don't mess with this house" sign. Her presence changes the atmosphere of a Hearthfire home. She isn't domestic. If you ask her to buy cows, you get the feeling she's just going to hunt them for sport if they get too slow. But she respects strength. Her dialogue, "Something has shifted in the moons, brother-sister," adds a mystical primal layer to the daily grind. She tracks the passage of time not by the clock, but by the lunar cycle. Aela is best suited for a home in a wilder hold, perhaps the Pale or Falkreath. She needs trees, she needs prey. Placing her in the swamp of Morthal feels wrong. She's a hunter of the forest and plains, not a scavenger of the muck. At Lakeview, she blends into the environment. She's often found patrolling the perimeter, not just standing by the door. She actively hunts the wolves and necromancers near the property. One specific tactical advantage Aela offers is her sneak proficiency. While sneak doesn't transfer perfectly to follower AI, Aela is quieter than the heavy armor housecarls. She doesn't clank. This means she often spots enemies before they spot her getting the first shot off. That initial burst of damage from stealth can be the difference between a bandit raid being a threat or a nuisance. However, there is a recurring complaint among Thanes who employ her. She refuses to wear certain helmets or armors that cover her aesthetic. Aela knows she looks good, and she fights to keep it that way. But if you give her the Saviour's Hide, the Daedric artifact of Hircine, she will equip it. It's the perfect uniform for her. It boosts magic resistance and poison resistance, making her surprisingly durable against Spriggans and Hagrevens. There is also the matter of her shield siblings. Aela brings the might of Jorvaskr with her. While they don't physically show up, the narrative weight is there. You aren't just messing with a homeowner, you are messing with the Circle. One interaction that is purely emergent gameplay but feels like canon lore is how she handles the kidnapped spouse scenario. If your spouse is kidnapped by bandits, a Hearthfire event, and Aela is your steward, but not your spouse, she treats the rescue mission with professional detachment. But if she is your spouse and steward, and she gets kidnapped, she usually frees herself before you even get to the dungeon. You arrive to find a trail of bodies, and Aela waiting by the exit, looking bored. "Took you long enough," she seems to say. Aela represents the apex predator defense. She doesn't block, she kills. She operates on the principle that the best defense is a dead enemy. She brings a savagery to the stewardship role that the housecarls lack. They serve out of duty. Aela serves out of a bond of blood and the thrill of the hunt. So, if you want your home to be a lodge for the elite, a place where the weak are culled and the strong thrive, Aela is your choice. She is the beast within, the arrow in the dark, the unyielding spirit of the old ways. But the companions have more than one elite warrior. Perhaps you want the discipline of the circle without the wild unpredictability of the huntress. Perhaps you want a man who has mastered the art of war through intellect as well as strength. We remain in Jorvaska to speak with the master of tactics. We remain within the smoky, history-laden hull of Jorvaska, but we shift our gaze from the wild, predatory eyes of the huntress to a pair of eyes that are altogether more brooding, more intelligent, and perhaps a little more haunted. If Aela is the spirit of the beast, this man is the mind that seeks to control it. We are speaking of Vilkas, the master of two-handed tactics. Vilkas is one of the twins of the circle, brother to Farkas, and in many ways the intellectual anchor of the companions. When you first meet the companions, it is Vilkas who is often asked to test your arm in the courtyard. He is the gatekeeper. He judges you not just on your strength, but on your discipline. Not bad, he might say, but you have no form. To appoint Vilkas as the steward of your Hearthfire estate is to bring that same critical perfectionist eye to the defence of your property. Visually, Vilkas cuts a striking figure in his wolf armour, the signature heavy male of the circle's elite. But, unlike his brother, who carries himself with a loose brawling swagger, Vilkas moves with precision. He is a scholar of war. He reads, he thinks, and when he strikes, it is the result of calculation, not just rage. This leads us to the core in-game fact that makes Vilkas a Tier 1 choice for your homestead. He's a master-level trainer in two-handed weaponry. In the world of Skyrim, convenience is king. Usually to master the art of the greatsword, you would have to travel all the way to Whiterun, load into Jorvaska and find Vilkas sitting at a table. By making him your steward, you bring the dojo to your doorstep. You can wake up at Lakeview Manor, walk out to the porch, and pay him to teach you how to decapitate a dragon, all before breakfast. Furthermore, there is a sinister little economic loop available here. Since Vilkas can be recruited as a follower even while serving as a steward, you can pay him for training, ask him to trade items, and then simply take your gold back from his inventory. It's, let's call it a friends and family discount. It allows you to power level your two-handed skill to 90 without spending a single septim. That kind of utility pays for the house itself. In combat, Vilkas is a terror. He specialises in two-handed weapons and heavy armour. His default weapon is a Skyforged steel greatsword, which is decent, but he scales beautifully with higher tier gear. Because his class is technically Combat Warrior 2H, he has access to perks that mirror the player's sweep ability. This means when he swings his sword sideways, he hits everything in front of him. Imagine a pack of wolves attacking your chickens. A normal guard kills them one by one. Vilkas steps in, swings once, and 3 wolves go flying. It is crowd control through raw kinetic energy. But Vilkas is not just a damage dealer, he's a character of deep contradictions. This brings us to an obscure lore tidbit hidden in the journals of Kodlak Whitemane the Harbinger. Kodlak writes about the twins, noting that while Farkas has the strength, Vilkas has the fire. Kodlak worries that Vilkas' intellect makes him prone to brooding, to anger, and to a darker form of passion. He feels the weight of the beast blood more acutely than Aela or Farkas. He perceives it as a stain on his soul, a barrier to Sovngarde. This internal conflict makes him a fascinating presence at your home. He isn't just standing around, he's contemplating his existence. When he looks out over the tundra from your porch, you get the sense he is wrestling with the wolf inside him. It adds a layer of gothic drama to your domestic life. He is the Heathcliff of Skyrim, brooding on your moors. There is a persistent fan theory that Vilkas was intended to be the true successor to Kodlak, not the Dragonborn. He has the lineage, the mind, and the skill. His initial hostility toward you, calling you a whelp, stems from jealousy. He sees you, a newcomer, rising through the ranks, while he remains trapped by his own demons. By making him your steward, you're effectively ending his career as a potential harbinger and turning him into your estate manager. Is it a promotion, or are you asserting your dominance by making the smart one count your lumber supplies? Let's be honest, there is a petty satisfaction in telling the guy who mocked your sword arm to go buy you some straw for the cow. However, Vilkas is undeniably effective. His aggression radius seems slightly tighter than Aela's. He doesn't chase enemies halfway across the map, he guards the perimeter. He is a defensive tactician. He understands that his job is to protect the Thane, not to chase a deer for 3 miles. There is, however, a notorious quirk with Vilkas, the glitch that has launched 1,000 Reddit threads. If you have a bounty in any hold, even a tiny one, Vilkas will sometimes enter a loop where he constantly runs up to you and initiates dialogue, preventing you from fast travelling or doing anything else. This is because his faction data marks him as a guard archetype in certain scripts. He is literally trying to arrest you, but he lacks the dialogue options to do so he just stares at you aggressively. It's annoying, but it also proves a point. He is hyper-vigilant. He knows you stole that cheese wheel. He knows. Living with Vilkas at a property like Heljarchen Hall feels thematically appropriate. The harsh, cold environment suits his temperament. He isn't a man for the sunny forest of Falkreath. He belongs in the snow, fighting giants, and giants he will fight. Vilkas versus a giant is a showcase of the stagger mechanic. Because he uses a 2-handed weapon, he can interrupt the giant's attacks. If you equip him with a Dragonbone Warhammer, which ignores armour, he becomes a can opener. He cracks the giant's defence, allowing you to finish the job. He is the setup man, the tactical enabler. His dialogue as a steward is clipped and professional. "I'm right here," he says. It's reassuring. He isn't sycophantic like Jordis, nor is he grumpy. He is simply present. He takes the job seriously because he takes everything seriously. One interaction to note is his response to the Silver Hand random encounters. If the Silver Hand attacks your home, which can happen if the Radiant quest system aligns, Vilkas goes into a frenzy. These are the men who threaten his very soul. The combat becomes personal. He doesn't just kill them, he executes them. It's a level of narrative consistency that makes the world feel alive. We should also consider his synergy with the Dragonborn expansion content. If you have to leave for Solstheim for weeks at a time, leaving Vilkas in charge feels like the responsible choice. You know he won't throw a party. You know he won't let the bard steal the silverware. He will likely spend the entire time sharpening his sword and reading books by the fire. He is the responsible older brother. Even if they are twins, he acts older, keeping the house in order. And let's not forget the aesthetic of his gear. Wolf armour is some of the best looking unique armour in the game. It's sleek, dark, and fits the Guardian vibe perfectly. Unlike the bulky Dwarven or Orcish sets, wolf armour looks mobile. It suggests a warrior who is fast as well as strong. Having him patrol your grounds looks like you have a personal elite guard, not just a mercenary. Vilkas represents the intersection of brain and brawn. He is the steward for the thinking player, the one who values training and tactics over brute force. He is the master of the 2-handed dance, a warrior poet who will guard your secrets as closely as he guards his own. But what if you don't care about tactics? What if you don't care about internal conflict or form? What if you just want a wall of muscle that hits things until they stop moving? What if you want the other twin? We remain at the long table in Jorvaska, shifting our attention from the brooding tactical mind of Vilkas to the man sitting across from him, the man with the steel in his eyes, and according to some, rocks in his head. He is the other half of the circle's twin dynamic, the muscle to Vilkas's mind. We are speaking of Farkas, the Iron Hand of Jorvaska. To choose Farkas as your steward is to choose absolute unwavering loyalty, wrapped in a very large, very durable package. Farkas is simple, he admits it himself. He doesn't care about the politics of the Silver Hand, the complexities of the Civil War, or the philosophical implications of the Beastblood. He cares about being strong, and he cares about his friends. And if you are his Thane, you are his best friend. Visually, Farkas is the archetype of the Nord warrior. He wears the same wolf armour as his brother, but on him it seems to strain at the seams. He carries himself with a loose, heavy gait. While Vilkas stands like a fencer, Farkas stands like a boulder. He is immovable. This brings us to the core in-game fact that makes him an economic asset to your household. Farkas is the master-level trainer for heavy armour. Just as with his brother, having Farkas live at your house means you have access to the highest tier of training without ever leaving your property. You can grind your heavy armour skill from 1 to 90 in the safety of your own living room, paying him the gold and then, because he is your follower, taking it right back. It is the same family discount loop, but for defence instead of offence. However, Farkas comes with one of the most infamous obscure lore tidbits, or rather technical oversights, in Skyrim's history. In the vanilla game code, Farkas is not assigned the warrior class or even a tank class. Due to a developer error, his class is set to blacksmith. This is a bizarre look under the hood. It means that while Farkas levels up with you, his skill points are disproportionately dumped into smithing, speech and lockpicking, rather than one-handed or two-handed combat. Essentially, your elite bodyguard is technically a pacifist artisan who just happens to be incredibly strong. He has the health pool of a giant and the heavy armor skill to tank hits, but his weapon damage doesn't scale as aggressively as it should. He's hitting enemies with the enthusiasm of a warrior but the technique of a guy who fixes horseshoes. Yet, let's be honest, in Skyrim, a high health pool is often all you need. Farkas survives because he is a sponge. He soaks up damage. He draws aggro. He stands in the doorway and lets bandits break their weapons on his face while you cast spells from behind him. He is the ultimate meat shield. This blacksmith quirk also leads to a funny fan theory headcanon. Does Farkas actually fix up your house better than the other stewards? When you ask him to build a stable or a shrine, is he doing it himself? The idea of this hulking werewolf delicately hammering nails and sanding wood because he is secretly a master blacksmith is a delightful image. It adds a touch of warmth to his character. He isn't just guarding the house. He built the hinges on the door, but we must address the elephant, or rather the arachnid, in the room. Farkas has a canonical scripted fear of spiders. During the Proving Honour quest in Dustman's Cairn, he explicitly comments on his distaste for the creatures. I hate those things. Too many eyes, you know. This leads to a critical strategic advisory. Do not make Farkas the steward of Windstad Manor. Windstad is in the Yarmarch swamp. It is infested with frostbite spiders and chorus. While his AI won't actually run away, he will fight them. It feels cruel, doesn't it? Putting the one guy who hates spiders in the spider capital of Skyrim, it's a recipe for a disgruntled employee. He belongs in the open air of the Pale, Heljarchen Hall, or the forests of Falkreath, Lakeview, where the enemies are wolves, bears and bandits, things he understands and respects. Farkas's personality is the antithesis of the dark, brooding stewards like Iona or Rayya. He is cheerful in a grim sort of way. His voice lines delivered with a gravelly kindness. Skjor says I have the strength of Ysgramor, and my brother has his smarts. He accepts his role. He doesn't try to be the leader, he is content to be the arm. This simplicity makes him a very relaxing presence to have around the homestead. He isn't judging you, he isn't plotting. If you come home covered in mud and blood, Farkas doesn't ask questions, he just nods, and probably offers to hit whatever did that to you. He is the golden retriever of the companion circle, big, loyal, and dangerous only to those who threaten his master. In combat scenarios, Farkas tends to favour greatswords, despite his class bug suggesting otherwise. His inventory often defaults to two-handed. Because of his high heavy armor rating, he rarely gets staggered. He wades in. If you have a family living at the homestead, Farkas is perhaps the best uncle figure. He has protected status, meaning he won't die unless you kill him, ensuring he sticks around to watch over your adopted kids. You can easily imagine him letting the kids climb on his shoulders, or teaching them how to punch a mud crab. There is a visceral satisfaction to watching Farkas fight a dragon. He doesn't use cover. He stands in the open, letting the fire breath wash over his wolf armor, and then charges the dragon's head. It's brute force versus brute force. He represents the Nord ideal that pain is just a signal that the fight isn't over yet. However, you must manage his gear carefully. Because of his weird skill distribution, he benefits immensely from enchantments that boost one-handed or two-handed damage, essentially patching the hole in his programming. If you give him a legendary Dragonbone Greatsword with a fortified two-handed enchantment, you can brute force his damage output to acceptable levels. You have to be his smith, ironically, to help the blacksmith fight. Farkas also has a unique interaction with the guards. Because he is a companion, guards will occasionally comment on his presence. You're one of the companions, aren't you? I count it an honour to have you here. It raises the prestige of your estate. You aren't just some rich hermit. You are hosting a celebrity of the martial world. If you're playing a good character, a paladin, a hero of the people, Farkas is the moral choice. He has a good heart. He is one of the few followers who seems genuinely upset if you do something evil, though he will still follow you because he is loyal to a fault. He anchors your home in the concept of honour. Ultimately, Farkas is the Iron Hand because he is unbreakable. He might not be the smartest tactical choice compared to a min-maxed follower, and his bugged stats are a nuisance for the math-obsessed, but for the player who values narrative and feel, He is top tier. He makes your house feel safe. He is the big brother who won't let the bullies, or the bandits, take your lunch money. So, if you want a steward who will never betray you, who will never overthink an order, and who will happily smash a giant's toe with a hammer because you asked him to, Farkas is your man. He is the heart of Jorvaska, beating strong on your front porch. But maybe you don't want a companion. Maybe you want a protector who is already a local legend in her own right. Someone who has walked the breadth of Skyrim looking for a challenge and found it wanting. Someone who is literally unkillable. We travel to the corruption-plagued streets of Riften to meet the Lioness. We return to the golden-hued decay of the rift, but this time we're not looking for a corrupted watcher like Iona. We are looking for the antidote to the poison that infects Riften. We are looking for the self-proclaimed protector of the city, the woman who walks the plankways of the canal speaking loudly about honour while the Thieves' Guild cowers in the sewers beneath her boots. We are speaking of Mjoll the Lioness. Mjoll is a unique entity in the Skyrim follower roster. She's a wandering knight, an adventurer who has seen enough of the world to know that it is broken, and she has decided to fix it, one crushed skull at a time. To appoint Mjoll as your steward is to bring a sheriff to your town of one. She doesn't just guard your house, she patrols it with a sense of righteous ownership. Visually, Mjoll is distinct. She wears a mix of banded iron armour and a hood, giving her a traveller's aesthetic. She carries a massive two-handed weapon on her back, usually a battle axe or greatsword. Her face is scarred, war paint stripes that suggest a life of violence, yet her demeanour is open, almost friendly. "Welcome, stranger," she booms, but the friendliness masks a terrifying capacity for violence. This leads us to the core in-game fact that places Mjoll at the very pinnacle of stewardship rankings. Mjoll the Lioness is an essential NPC. Unlike Rayya, Gregor, or even Lydia, Mjoll cannot be killed. Not by bandits, not by dragons, not by giants, and most importantly not by you. In the chaotic physics engine of Skyrim, where a stray fireball or a glitched mammoth can instantly delete a follower, Mjoll is eternal. She will take a knee when her health is depleted, catch her breath, and get back up. This trait makes her the ultimate insurance policy for your Hearthfire home. If you leave your children and your spouse at Lakeview Manor with Mjoll, you can disappear to Solstheim for a year knowing that, mathematically speaking, your family cannot be overrun. The bandits might knock her down, but they can never get past her. She is the infinite wall. However, acquiring Mjoll requires a fetch quest. She has lost her signature blade, Grimsever, in the Dwemer ruin of Mzinchaleft. This brings us to the obscure lore tidbit regarding her past. Mjoll tells you that Grimsever was a glass greatsword she used for years, until she was nearly killed by a dwarven centurion. She claims the sword was lost when she crawled out of the ruin, barely alive. But if you look closely at the lore of glass weaponry, refined malachite, it is incredibly light and sharp but brittle compared to heavier metals. Mjoll is a tank. She fights with brute force. The fact that she favoured a delicate glass greatsword suggests a younger, perhaps more reckless fighting style, a glass cannon phase of her life. Losing Grimsever and nearly dying was her wake-up call. Now she's slower, more deliberate, and infinitely tougher. Returning the sword to her restores her spirit, but she retains the wisdom of that near-death experience. She fights like someone who knows she got a second chance. But Mjoll does not come alone, and this is the elephant in the room that every player must address. Where Mjoll goes, Eren follows. Eren is the Imperial man who saved her life outside the Dwemer ruin. He nursed her back to health. He is her shadow. If you recruit Mjoll and move her to your Hearthfire home, Eren will often just show up. He will walk all the way from Riften to your house in Falkreath or the Pale. He will hang around your living room. He'll watch Mjoll chop wood. He will sleep in your guest room or stand awkwardly in the corner. This has spawned a massive fan theory community debate. Is Eren the ultimate friend zone victim, a noble saviour, or a creepy stalker? He has no life of his own. His entire schedule revolves around Mjoll. Some players find his devotion touching, a non-combatant sticking by the side of his hero. Others find it deeply intrusive. I hired a bodyguard, not a bodyguard and her hype man. Let's be honest, there is a dark comedic element to coming home after saving the world, only to find Eren eating your bread and telling Mjoll for the 1000th time how amazing she is. Many Thanes solve this problem with a hunting accident involving a steep cliff, but Mjoll never seems to suspect a thing. If you can tolerate or eliminate Erin, Mjoll's utility is unmatched. Her combat style is two-handed tank. She has high health and high heavy armor skills. Because she is essential, she makes the perfect bait for legendary dragons. You can stand back and rain arrows while the dragon chews on Mjoll. She will absorb infinite damage, keeping the dragon grounded and distracted. Her personality is also a major factor. Mjoll is a chatterbox. Unlike the housecarls who have limited lines, Mjoll has stories. She talks about her father, about the cliff races in Morrowind, yes, she mentions them, and about the corruption of Riften. Having her as a steward makes the house feel alive. She provides a narration to your domestic life. I've seen enough death to last 3 lifetimes, she might say, while staring at your vegetable garden. It's a bit intense for a Tuesday morning, but it sets a mood. Mjoll is particularly well suited for a good aligned playthrough. She despises the Thieves' Guild and the Dark Brotherhood. If you're playing a righteous dragonborn, she is your moral equal. She patrols your land not just for pay, but because she hates scum. When bandits attack, she screams, "Is that your best? And die, dog!" with a conviction that feels personal. She isn't just defending property, she is cleansing the land. Let's visualize a siege at Heljarchen Hall. A giant and 2 mammoths wander into the perimeter. This is a code red for any other steward. Mjoll draws Grim's Ever, if you gave it back to her, though you might want to give her a dragonbone battleaxe for better damage. She charges the mammoths. A mammoth stomp can kill a player instantly on higher difficulties. Mjoll takes the hit. She flies backward, ragdolling down the hill, but because she is essential, she stands up, dusts herself off, and charges again. It is a war of attrition that she literally cannot lose. The enemies will eventually run out of health. Mjoll never will. There is also a functional benefit to her citizen status. Mjoll is technically a civilian NPC before she becomes a follower. This means her dialogue package includes more normal interactions. She will interact with furniture, cook, and sandbox around the house, more naturally than some of the rigid soldier-coded housecarls. She feels like a person living in your house, not a sentry bot. However, her loquaciousness can be a double-edged sword. Mjoll repeats her stories, a lot. If you spend a lot of time at home crafting, you will hear the story about the cut-purse in Riften approximately 500 times. He drew a his knife. I drew my sword. You'll find yourself mouthing the words along with her. It becomes a sort of mantra, a background noise to your alchemy. For the min-maxer, Mjoll is the correct choice simply because of the essential tag. In a game where glitches happen, where dragons can spawn inside your house, and where vampires can chain paralyze your guards, having an unkillable unit is the only way to guarantee 100% security. She is the fail-safe. Furthermore, Mjoll is one of the few followers who can effectively wield Volendrung, the Daedric Warhammer. The weapon absorbs stamina, allowing for infinite power attacks. Since Mjoll loves to power attack, this weapon turns her into a perpetual motion machine of destruction. The sight of Mjoll spinning through a group of bandits with a glowing green hammer is one of the distinct pleasures of a high-level Skyrim save. So, if you want a steward who has a backstory, a moral code, an unkillable health bar, and a persistent admirer who may or may not need to be dealt with, Mjoll is the lioness for you. She is the immortal defender. She ensures that no matter what horrors the game throws at your doorstep, the line will hold. But perhaps you prefer your magic to be colder. Perhaps you want a steward who doesn't talk about honour, but instead wields the power of a blizzard. We leave the corruption of Riften and head south, to the dark tower in the mountains, to find a mage who turned against her own mother. We leave the humid, corrupted streets of Riften and the righteous fury of Mjoll, ascending into the jagged, snow-capped peaks that form the southern border of Skyrim. Here, nestled among the grey crags, stands Darklight Tower. It is a grim, foreboding spire, the kind of place that screams bad things happen here. And indeed, bad things do happen here. Inside, a coven of witches and hagravens conducts dark rituals to ascend to hagravenhood. But amidst this corruption, there is one spark of conscience. One mage who looked at her mother's plan to sacrifice humans for power and said, "No." We are speaking of Ilia, the ice storm of Darklight. Ilia is perhaps the most tragic and potent magic user you can recruit in the vanilla game outside of the College of Winterhold. She's an imperial mage, though her life in a tower full of reach magic practitioners has left her with a unique, somewhat dark aura. To earn her service, you must help her ascend the tower and kill her own mother, Sylvia, to stop a ritual. It is a heavy start to a friendship. Hi, nice to meet you. Help me commit matricide is a bold opening line, but the reward is a steward who brings the fury of a blizzard to your front door. Visually, Ilia is unassuming. She wears standard blue mage robes. She doesn't look like a warrior, she looks like a scholar, or perhaps a librarian who has had a very, very long day. But do not let the cloth armour fool you. Ilia is a glass cannon in the truest sense. This brings us to the core in-game fact that defines her utility. Ilia is a destruction mage with a terrifying proficiency in frost magic, specifically the spell Ice Storm. Most mage followers use Ice Spike or Lightning Bolt, single-target projectiles. Ilia, however, prefers the area of effect nuke. Ice Storm creates a swirling whirlwind of cold that moves slowly forward, passing through enemies and, crucially, passing through walls. This spell is a game-changer for home defense. Imagine a group of bandits clustering around your front door trying to pick the lock or bashing it with axes. A normal steward has to open the door to fight them. Ilia, standing safely inside or on the balcony above, casts Ice Storm. The whirlwind drifts through the solid wood of the door, slowing and damaging every single bandit on the other side. By the time they breach the perimeter, they are already half dead and moving at a snail's pace due to the frost slow effect. She essentially weaponizes the architecture of your house. However, this power comes with a significant advisory. Ice Storm does not discriminate. It hits everything in its path. If you have chickens, a cow, a horse, or a bard named Llewellyn standing in the line of fire, they are going to get frozen. Ilia is the definition of friendly fire. Appointing her as steward requires you to accept that your livestock turnover rate might be higher than average. You aren't losing chickens to foxes, you're losing them to collateral damage from your own security system. This leads to the obscure lore tidbit, or rather, a notorious engine quirk, that makes stewardship the only logical fate for Ilia. In the unpatched game, and even in some patched versions, Ilia suffers from a one-time recruitment bug. Once you complete her quest and recruit her, if you ever dismiss her, say to do a quest that requires a forced follower like Serana, she may lose the dialogue option to be recruited again. She will simply stand in Darklight Tower, greeting you politely but refusing to follow. She becomes broken. By making her a Hearthfire steward, you effectively bypass this tragedy. As a steward, she is permanently bound to your property. She won't disappear. She won't glitch out in a dungeon. You're giving her a permanent home, saving her from a life of standing alone in a tower, filled with the corpses of her family. It is a mercy employment. But what of her mental state? This fuels a poignant fan theory regarding Ilia's desire for a quiet life. Why would a powerful witch who just killed her coven leader want to guard a farm? Fans speculate that Ilia is seeking normalcy. She grew up in a cult. She has never known a normal life. The Hearthfire Homes, with their gardens, kitchens, and adoptable children, represent everything she was denied. She isn't just guarding your house. She is trying to heal. She is role-playing a normal person. Let's be honest, watching Ilia rake leaves in the garden is strangely wholesome, considering just 24 hours ago she was incinerating hagravens. It's the ultimate retirement arc. Strategically, Ilia shines in the wide open spaces of the Pale, Heljarchen Hall, or the Tundra, Golden Hills Plantation, if you count Creation Club content. In tight spaces, her AoE spells are dangerous to you. In the open, she can unleash hell. When a dragon attacks, Ilia is magnificent. Frost magic drains stamina. A dragon with 0 stamina cannot bite, or tail whip effectively. It can only use breath attacks. Ilia keeps the dragon grounded and sluggish. Her range is exceptional. While melee stewards are running around trying to find a path to the dragon, Ilia is already casting. The blue bolts of ice streak across the sky, tracking the beast. There is a specific aesthetic joy to equipping Ilia. Since she's a mage, she doesn't benefit from heavy armour, unless you want to ruin her mage armour perks, though her default perks are a bit of a mess in vanilla. Instead, giving her a staff of fireballs or a staff of paralysis turns her into a dual-wielding caster. She will use her own magic in one hand and the staff in the other. She becomes a machine gun of elemental fury. Seeing her standing on the ramparts of Lakeview Manor, robes billowing in the wind, creates a very specific tower wizard vibe. You aren't just a thane, you're a lord who employs a court wizard. It elevates the status of your home. However, Ilia's dialogue is limited. She retains the generic female dark elf voice type, despite being Imperial, which is another Bethesda quirk, or the female Evan-toned voice, depending on your patch version. She sounds weary. "I'm right behind you," she says, but the tone suggests she's checking for knives in her back. It fits her backstory perfectly. She has trust issues, and why shouldn't she? Her mother tried to turn into a bird monster and eat her heart. One interaction that highlights her power is against the skeever infestation event in the cellar. Every Hearthfire owner knows the pain of going down to the basement to check your mead barrels, only to be swarmed by 10 venomous rats. A warrior has to chase them. Ilia casts one ice storm. The enclosed space of the cellar acts as a kill box. The spell bounces, figuratively, and fills the room. Silence falls. The infestation is cleared in 3 seconds. Just make sure you aren't standing in the doorway when she casts it. Living with Ilia is a quiet experience. She doesn't have Mjoll's stories or Lydia's size. She's spectral. She moves silently. Sometimes you'll find her sitting in a chair in the dark, staring at the fire. Is she contemplating the nature of magic? Or is she remembering the screams of the coven? It adds a layer of gothic horror to your cozy farmhouse. If you are playing a mage character yourself, Ilia is the perfect apprentice. You can roleplay that you are teaching her proper magic, away from the dark influence of the Hagravens. You can dress her in archmage robes, if you have a mod or a spare set, and give her a circlet of blasting. She looks the part. But the most compelling reason to choose Ilia is the sheer cool factor of her combat. Frost magic in Skyrim is beautiful. It leaves icy residue on the ground. It slows time for the enemy. Having a steward who turns your front lawn into a frozen wasteland every time a wolf shows up is visually arresting. It feels powerful. There is also the element of fixing her. In her default state, her gear is terrible, a weak dagger and robes. As her thane and employer, you have the resources to outfit her properly. Giving her a ring of destruction and a necklace of magic suppression makes her formidable. You are rebuilding her, piece by piece. Ilia represents the glass cannon choice. She's high risk, high reward. If a giant gets close to her, she will go down in one hit. She has no armor rating, but her job is to ensure nothing ever gets that close. She is the preemptive strike. She is the artillery. So if you want a steward who brings a dark, magical past and the ability to freeze an entire bandit raid in a single heartbeat, Ilia is your choice. She is the ice storm of Darklight, and she has finally found a home worth protecting. But perhaps magic is too unpredictable for you. Perhaps you want a story that is more grounded, more humble. A story of a young man who dreams of adventure, whose father wants him to stay on. The farm. A boy who needs chance and a set of armor. We travel west to the farming village of Rorikstead. We leave the frozen heights of Darklight Tower and the somber magic of Ilia, descending west into the rolling golden plains of Whiterun Hold. Here, the land is flat. The soil is suspiciously fertile, and the dragons seem to view the livestock as an all-you-can-eat buffet. We arrive at the sleepy hamlet of Rorikstead. It is a town of secrets, where the crops never fail and the women tragically die in childbirth, fueling endless conspiracy theories. But amidst this strange rural mystery, there is a young man hoeing the earth who dreams of something more. We are here to recruit Eric the Slayer. Eric is the little brother of the Skyrim follower ecosystem. Unlike the housecarls who are assigned to you by law, or the mercenaries who follow you for gold, Eric follows you because you are his hero. You are the catalyst for his entire life. To appoint Eric as your steward is to complete his arc. You aren't just hiring a guard, you are giving a starry-eyed apprentice his first real command. When you first meet him, he is simply Eric, dressed in farm clothes, complaining that his father, Moralki, won't let him leave. He's trapped. By convincing his father to buy him armor, or paying for it yourself, you transform him. He becomes Eric the Slayer. The title is self-appointed and slightly ambitious for a kid whose biggest kill to date was likely a skeever, but the enthusiasm is infectious. This brings us to the core in-game fact that makes Eric a hidden gem for stewardship. He is one of the few followers with the barbarian class archetype. While he looks like a standard warrior, his stat distribution favours light armor and two-handed weapons. This makes him fast. A heavy armor tank like Farkas takes time to close the distance. Eric, in light armor, especially if you outfit him in dragon scale or glass, sprints across the property. He intercepts threats at the perimeter. He is a skirmisher. This mobility is crucial for a large property like Golden Hills Plantation, if you're running the Creation Club content, or the sprawling grounds of Lakeview Manor. When a thief runs for the tree line, Eric can catch him. His high stamina regeneration, a hallmark of the barbarian class, means he can sustain power attacks longer than the heavily armoured housecarls. But let's talk about the heart of this character. There is a real-world tragedy woven into Eric's code, an obscure lore tidbit that transcends the game world. Eric the Slayer is a tribute to a real Skyrim fan named Eric West, known on the forums as Imok the Slayer, who visited Bethesda Studios shortly before passing away from cancer in 2011. The developers immortalized him as the eager adventurer who just needs a chance. Knowing this adds a profound layer of protectiveness to your relationship with him. When you make him your steward, you aren't just dumping him at a house to rot, you're keeping him safe. You're giving him a home where he can live out his dream of being a hero, but without the high risk of dragging him into a black book in Apocrypha. He guards your family. He becomes the slayer he wanted to be, on his own terms. Let's be honest, every time a dragon attacks and Eric screams, "I'm a mercenary now," a little part of us cheers. Go get him, kid. Just try not to stand in the fire. From a narrative standpoint, Eric is the perfect steward for a player who wants to roleplay a mentor. If you are a high-level dragonborn, clad in Daedric armour, Eric is your squire. He manages the estate because he is learning the ropes, and because he is a farmer's son, his stewardship dialogue feels the most authentic. When he talks about buying lumber or managing the cow, you believe him. He actually knows how to milk a cow. Rayya probably just scares the milk out of it. Eric understands the land. This leads to a dark but compelling fan theory regarding his hometown. Rorikstead is the subject of intense speculation. The soil is too fertile. The town is full of soul gem oddities. Many fans believe Rorikstead is a front for a Daedric cult ensuring harvest through sacrifice. By taking Eric out of Rorikstead, are you saving him from being the next harvest sacrifice? His father, Moralki, is incredibly protective, perhaps out of fear of the town elders, not the outside world. By moving Eric to your Hearthfire home, you're extracting him from a cursed village and giving him a clean slate. In combat, Eric's inexperience is scripted into his charm, but his stats don't lie. He hits hard. Because he favours two-handed weapons, he has that crucial stagger potential. However, unlike Vilkas or Mjoll, Eric doesn't have the massive health pool to soak up punishment forever. He relies on killing the enemy before they kill him. This makes him a high aggression defender. Let's visualise a bandit raid at Windstad Manor. The bandits are approaching the fish hatchery. Eric spots them. He doesn't wait for orders. He draws his greatsword. Let's say you've gifted him a Nordic greatsword to fit the aesthetic. He charges with a shout that is slightly higher pitched than the gruff Nords of the hold. He swings wildly. It's messy. He misses a block and takes a dagger to the arm, but he retaliates with a sideways sweep that catches two bandits at once. The barbarian fighting style is chaotic. It lacks the military precision of Jordis. Eric fights with adrenaline. He is fighting to prove he belongs. And when the dust settles, and he stands over the bodies panting, there is a genuine sense of accomplishment. "Did you see that?" his posture seems to ask. Living with Eric is refreshing. He is optimistic. In a game filled with brooding vampires, depressed alcoholics, and traumatized soldiers, Eric is happy. He greets you with a smile. He comments on the weather. He treats your children like siblings. If you have the Hearthfire multi-kid mod, or just the standard 2, Eric is the big brother who chases them around the yard with a wooden sword. However, you must be careful with his gear. Because his default armour is iron, he is incredibly squishy if you don't upgrade him immediately. The moment you hire him, you have a moral obligation to smith him a set of scaled or glass armour. Seeing him in high-tier gear is a visual progression of his journey. He starts in a tunic. He ends in dragon scale. You made that happen. There is also a functional quirk to his stewardship. Because he is a hireling type, initially, he has a different dialogue tree than the housecarls. He is less formal. He doesn't call you Thane with the same stiff reverence. He calls you friend. It changes the power dynamic of the house. It feels less like a feudal lordship and more like a partnership. One specific scenario where Eric shines is against wildlife threats. Wolves, saber cats, bears. These are the enemies he likely dreamed of fighting while he was hoeing potatoes. He handles them with ease. There is a symmetry to it, the farm. Boy protecting the farm from the wolves. But be warned, Eric is not essential unless you're using mods. He can die. If a legendary dragon attacks your home and bites him, he can perish. And if Eric the Slayer dies, the guilt is heavy. You took him from his father, you promised him a life of adventure, and now he's a pile of ash on your driveway. This fragility adds tension. You will find yourself running to help him faster than you would for Lydia. You fight harder to protect him than he does to protect you. Ultimately, Eric represents hope. He represents the new generation of Skyrim. The civil war will end, the dragons will be defeated, and men like Eric will be the ones left to rebuild. Having him guard your home is a vote of confidence in the future. So if you want a steward who brings a smile to the dreary north, who fights with the desperate energy of a dreamer, and whose very existence is a tribute to the love of the game, Eric the Slayer is your man. He is the farm boy, turned guardian, standing watch over your legacy. But maybe you are done with dreamers. Maybe you are done with normal people entirely. Maybe the threat you face is so specific, so ancient and so bloody that you need a specialist. A man who hunts the hunters. We travel now to the hidden canyon of the Dayspring, to the fortress of the Dawnguard. We leave the sun-drenched fields of Rorikstead and the innocent ambition of Eric, plunging into the shadows of a hidden canyon in the rift. Here, the trees grow thick, and the air is tense with preparation. We are entering the Dayspring Canyon, the secret approach to Fort Dawnguard. In a world where the sun itself is threatened by an ancient prophecy, you need a steward who understands that the night is not just dark, it is hungry. You need a man who has sworn vengeance upon the undead. You need Durak, the relentless orc hunter. Durak is likely the first face you see associated with the Dawnguard expansion. He is the recruiter, the orc who walks up to you in a city square and asks, "Heard about the Dawnguard? Vampire hunters or something? In the old fort near Riften. Might consider joining up yourself." He is the herald of the DLC. But beneath that generic recruiter dialogue lies one of the most lethal ranged combatants in Skyrim. To appoint Durak as your steward is to turn your home into a forward operating base against the Volkihar clan. Visually, Durak is unmistakable. He wears the Dawnguard light armour, or heavy, depending on the spawn player gift. A utilitarian mix of leather and steel designed for mobility and protection against claws. But the defining feature of his silhouette is the weapon in his hands, the crossbow. This brings us to the core in-game fact that makes Durak a tactical superior choice for perimeter defense. Durak is the only potential steward who is hard-coded to favour the crossbow as his primary weapon. While you can give a crossbow to other followers, their AI often struggles with the reload animation or switches back to a hunting bow. Durak was built for it. The crossbow is not just a stylistic choice, it is a mathematical upgrade for a sentry. Unlike a standard bow, which requires a draw time to reach full power, a crossbow is always loaded at the start of combat. This means Durak's first shot is instant and carries maximum velocity. Furthermore, crossbow bolts travel faster and flatter than arrows, making them far more accurate against moving targets, like a vampire lord strafing in the air. Imagine a vampire traveller arriving at your Lakeview Manor. He drops the disguise and summons a gargoyle. Before the gargoyle can even take a step, there is a loud mechanical thwack. A steel bolt slams into the stone beast's chest. The impact staggers it. This is the crossbow's secret weapon, high stagger chance. Durak doesn't just damage enemies, he stops them. He interrupts their casting, he breaks their charge. Let's be honest, the sound of a crossbow firing, that heavy, mechanical punch, is infinitely more satisfying than the twang of a bow. It sounds like industrial pest control. Durak's motivation is what separates him from mercenaries. This leads to the obscure lore tidbit that defines his character. If you ask him why he joined the Dawnguard, he tells you a short, brutal story. "I lost 2 wives to vampires. I will not lose a third." This isn't just a job for him, it is a blood feud. Most orcs in Skyrim are concerned with the strongholds, with Malakath, with finding a good death. Durak doesn't care about a good death. He cares about making sure vampires die bad deaths. By making him the steward of your family home, you're tapping into this trauma. He failed to protect his own wives, in his eyes, so he will be damned if he lets anything happen to yours. The psychological profile of Durak is that of the guardian at the gate. He is projecting his need for redemption onto your spouse and children. He watches the tree line with an intensity that borders on obsession. There is a prevalent fan theory regarding Durak's original stronghold. Since he is an orc, he must have come from one of the orcish tribes, perhaps Lagashbur in the Rift or Nazulbur in Eastmarch. Some fans speculate he was exiled not for weakness but for his obsession. The orcs respect strength, but they also respect tradition. Durak's abandonment of the traditional Orcish weaponry, warhammers and axes, in favour of the new tech of the Dawnguard, crossbows, symbolises his break from tradition. He is a modernist. He uses the best tool for the job. Living with Durak changes the vibe of your homestead. He is grumpy. His voice type is the male orc preset, which is gravelly and curt. "What is it?" he grunts when you walk past. He isn't there to be your friend like Eric. He's there to work. But there is a comfort in his grumpiness. It's the grumpiness of a veteran who has seen it all and is unimpressed by everything except a dead vampire. Strategically, Durak is best placed in a location with long sight lines. The Golden Hills Plantation Creation Club is ideal, as is Heljarchen Hall. The flat terrain allows him to utilise the maximum range of his crossbow. If you give him exploding bolts of fire or shock, which you can craft after doing the Dawnguard side quests, he becomes a one-orc artillery battery. Let's visualise a night attack. The moons are obscured by clouds. A master vampire and 2 thralls approach the house. Durak is on the porch. He fires an exploding firebolt. The explosion lights up the night, setting the thralls on fire. The blast radius panics the AI. While they are running around burning, Durak is calmly cranking the reload mechanism of his crossbow. Crank, click, aim, fire. It is a rhythm. He puts a bolt in the master vampire's knee, preventing him from closing the distance. Because he wears Dawnguard armour, he has resistance to vampire attacks, if you equip the full set with the shield, though as a ranger he uses the crossbow. But even without the shield, the Dawnguard faction tag makes him aggressive toward undead. He spots them from further away than a standard NPC. There is also a functional benefit to his infinite ammo behaviour. While followers technically need 1 unit of ammo to fire, Durak's default hidden inventory often contains infinite steel bolts. However, to maximise his damage, you should give him 1 dwarven bolt or 1 exploding bolt. He will then duplicate it, firing an endless stream of high-grade munitions. It's a classic Skyrim exploit, but for a steward it's just good logistics. Durak also has no level cap in the remastered versions of the game, or a very high one, scaling to 81+. This means he stays relevant. While a housecarl like Gregor might cap out at 50, Durak keeps growing stronger as you do. His health pool expands, making him surprisingly durable for an archer. If enemies do get close, he pulls out a war axe, typical orc proficiency, and hacks them down, but his heart is in the ranged game. One specific interaction to watch for is with your other animals. Durak, being an orc, seems to have a rough affinity for beasts. If you have a stray dog or the Dawnguard huskies, Bran or Skiolang at your home, Durak fits right in. He looks like a kennel master. The image of this scarred orc patrolling your property with 2 armoured huskies is the ultimate deterrent. However, Durak is not a man for the finer things. Do not expect him to comment nicely on your decorations. He doesn't care about your display cases. He cares about the perimeter fence. If you ask him to buy furnishings, he does it, but you can feel his eyes rolling. More curtains? Fine, but we need more bolts. The vampire attack Radiant events are where he truly earns his keep. In the Dawnguard DLC, vampires can kill shopkeepers and quest givers in towns. By moving Durak to your remote home, you are creating a honeypot. You are drawing the attacks away from the vulnerable towns and toward a fortress manned by a specialist. You're saving Skyrim's economy by letting Durak shoot vampires on your lawn. He is the relentless hunter. He doesn't sleep, metaphorically. NPCs do sleep, but you know what I mean. He doesn't falter. He is fueled by the memory of his lost wives and the desire to put a bolt through the heart of every bloodsucker in Tamriel. So if you want a steward who brings military-grade hardware to a knife fight, who holds a personal grudge against the darkness, and who turns your front porch into a sniper's nest, Durak is the choice. But the Dawnguard is not just about angry orcs with crossbows. There are others in the fort. There is a warrior who represents the classic Nord spirit refined by the Crusade, a woman who can wear the heaviest armour in the game and still move like a blizzard. We turn our eyes to the training grounds of the fort to find the tank. We remain within the stone walls of Fort Dawnguard, amidst the sound of sharpening wheels and the smell of oiled leather. but where Durak patrols the ramparts with his crossbow, scanning the horizon for distant threats, another warrior dominates the training circle in the courtyard. She's a woman of few words but massive impact, a Nord who embodies the unstoppable force of an avalanche. She is Ingjard, the Nord tank of the Dawn Guard. If Durak is the sniper of the organisation, Ingjard is the battering ram. She represents the absolute pinnacle of the two-handed heavy armour archetype. While we have discussed other warriors like Gregor or Mjoll who fit this mould, Ingjard stands apart for one simple, mathematical reason that makes her arguably the most powerful steward you can acquire in the late game. She has no level cap. This brings us to the core in-game fact that defines her supremacy. Most vanilla followers, including the beloved housecarls like Lydia and Jordis, stop levelling, with you at level 50. Their health, stamina and skill points hit a hard ceiling. If you are a level 80 dragonborn facing legendary dragons and vampire lords on master difficulty, a level 50 Lydia is going to struggle. She becomes a liability. Ingjard, however, scales indefinitely, or at least up to the functional hard cap of the game, often cited as level 81 or higher in remastered versions. As you grow stronger, she grows stronger. Her health pool expands into the thousands. Her two-handed skill reaches 100 and stays there. She is future-proof. Visually, Ingjard is imposing. She defaults to the Dawn Guard heavy armour, a set that includes massive steel pauldrons and a full-face helm, though she often walks around without the helm in relax mode. This armour is distinct from the standard steel or iron sets. It looks militaristic, standardised, and built for war against supernatural enemies. It has a high armour rating and, crucially, offers protection against vampire drain attacks if you complete the set. But it is her weapon choice that strikes fear into the hearts of the undead. Ingjard favours warhammers. While she can use greatswords or battle axes, her AI seems particularly vicious with the hammer. The warhammer has the highest base damage of all weapon types, and the ability to ignore armour with the Skull Crusher perk, which her high skill emulates. Let's visualise a defence scenario at Heljarchen Hall. A legendary dragon lands, one of those massive purple-black monstrosities that can one-shot a giant. A standard steward might cower or get eaten. Ingjard charges. She's wearing a set of enchanted dragon plate armour you've gifted her, because she deserves the best. She meets the dragon's bite with a power attack. The sound is sickening. A wet thud as the hammer connects with the dragon's snout. The dragon recoils. Ingjard doesn't stop. She swings again, a horizontal arc that catches the dragon's wing. She is face-tanking the breath attack, her massive health pool absorbing the fire or frost. She is the anchor. She holds the dragon in place so you can flank it. She is the immovable object meeting the unstoppable force, and she is winning. Let's be honest, there is something deeply therapeutic about watching Ingjard play whack-a-mole with a dragon. She treats the ultimate predator of the sky like a nail that just needs one good hit. This leads to the obscure lore tidbit regarding her personality and voice. Ingjard shares a voice actor with several other Nord females, but her dialogue set is stripped of the attitude found in others. She doesn't have the sarcastic baggage of sworn to carry your burdens. She doesn't have the fanaticism of the housecarls. Her lines are clipped, professional, almost modern in their efficiency. "Ready," she says, "let's go." This lack of flavour dialogue is actually seen by many players as a feature, not a bug. She is the silent professional. She doesn't clutter the audio channel with complaints about the weather or stories about her childhood. She is a soldier. This makes her the perfect steward for a player who wants a quiet, efficient home. You don't need a bard, you need a bodyguard who shuts up and does her job. This feeds into a fan theory that Ingjard is actually the canonical replacement for Lydia. Fans speculate that Bethesda realised Lydia's level cap and attitude were becoming memes, so they introduced Ingjard in the Dawn Guard DLC as the fixed Lydia. She is blonde, like Jordis, uses heavy weapons, like the player often does, and scales forever. She is the apology gift from the developers to the players who wanted a female Nord tank who didn't suck at level 60. Living with Ingjard at a Hearthfire home feels like running a military outpost. She patrols with a rhythm that suggests formal training. She checks the corners. She doesn't just wander, she secures. At a property like Windstad Manor, where the sightlines are poor due to the fog and trees, her fearlessness is vital. When a Chorus Reaper bursts from the swamp, Ingjard is on it instantly. There is no hesitation. Her high aggression setting means she engages threats before they even get to the garden. One specific tactical advantage she offers is her resistance to vampiric drain. Because she is a member of the Dawnguard faction, she has hidden perks that make her more resilient against the primary attack of the DLC's main antagonists. If your home is attacked by a vampire lord, Ingjard can stand in the drain spell longer than any other follower. She's built to kill vampires. It is her job description. However, to get the most out of her, you need to be her armourer. Ingjard's default weapon is a Dawnguard Warhammer, which is effective against vampires but mid-tier against everything else. To turn her into a god-tier steward, you need to smith. Give her a Daedric Warhammer enchanted with absorb health and chaos damage. With her high skill and attack, speed, she seems to swing faster than she should, she becomes a self-sustaining engine of destruction. The absorb health keeps her topped up while she crushes skulls. There is a satisfying aesthetic contrast when you place Ingjard in a domestic setting. Seeing this armoured juggernaut sitting at your dining table, eating a sweet roll with a warhammer leaning against her chair is pure Skyrim. It highlights the duality of the Dragonborn's life, domestic bliss protected by extreme violence. She fits in well with adopted children too, not as a mother figure, but as the ultimate protector. My steward can beat up your dad, your kid might say to the local bully, and they would be right. Ingjard is also one of the few stewards who looks genuinely good in every armour set. Whether you put her in Nordic carved, Stalrim or Daedric, she wears it well. She has the frame of a warrior. She doesn't look like a mage struggling under the weight of steel, but be warned, Ingjard is not essential in the base configuration, though she is protected while a follower. If you dismiss her to be a steward, she retains the protected status, meaning only you can kill her, but in the chaos of a master-level fight with explosive spells flying everywhere, accidents happen, and killing Ingjard feels like breaking a perfectly tuned machine. It is a waste of potential. Her interactions with the other Dawnguard members are also worth noting. If you have Durak and Tielan recruited as well, perhaps guarding other homes, there is a sense of a network. You have established a Dawnguard chapter in every hold. Ingjard is the captain of the Pale, if you put her at Heljarchen. Durak is the ranger of the forest. You are building an organisation. One specific scenario where Ingjard reigns supreme is the giant attack on the homestead. We've mentioned giants before, but Ingjard handles them differently. She doesn't kite, she trades blows. A giant slams his club, Ingjard blocks with the haft of her hammer. Blocking with a weapon is less effective than a shield, but her health pool compensates. Then she counters. The stagger from her hammer can actually knock a giant out of his attack animation. It is a clash of titans. Ingjard represents the stat stick choice. If you care about numbers, highest health, highest damage cap, best scaling, she is the objective winner for the warrior slot. She doesn't have a tragic backstory to explore. She doesn't have a unique questline. She has stats. And in the harsh, math-driven reality of high-difficulty Skyrim, stats save lives. She is the Nord tank. She is the silent sentinel who will stand on your porch until the end of time, or until the game crashes, waiting for something foolish enough to challenge her. She's the best of the Dawnguard's melee division, and she is yours to command. But the Dawnguard has one more specialist to offer. We have the ranger, Durak, and the tank, Ingjard. But what about the paladin? What about the warrior who combines the steel of the Legion with the magic resistance of the Bretons? What about the man who knew Isran before he was cool? We turn to the final guardian on our list, the Vigilant of the Dayspring. We reach the final entry in our Chronicle of Guardians, returning one last time to the stone fortifications of the Dayspring Canyon. We have met the relentless hunter Durak and the unstoppable force Ingjard. But standing quietly by the training dummies, often polishing a shield with the meticulous care of a man who has seen too many shields break, is a warrior who offers something different. He offers resilience. He offers a history of walking away from darkness, only to return to fight it on his own terms. We are speaking of Kellan, the vigilant Breton of the Dayspring. Kellan is a unique presence in the Dawnguard roster. He is a Breton, a race typically associated with spellcasting and court politics in High Rock. Yet Kellan is a warrior through and through. He wears the heavy Dawnguard armour and carries a shield. He is a spellbreaker in spirit, if not in name. To appoint Kellan as your steward is to place a man at your door who can walk through fire without burning. This brings us to the core in-game fact that makes Kellan a statistical anomaly and a defensive powerhouse, his racial passive. As a Breton, Telan possesses a natural 25% resistance to all magic. This is hard-coded into his biology. Most warrior followers, Lydia, Gregor, Rayya, have 0 natural resistance. When a dragon breathes fire or a necromancer throws a fireball, they take full damage. Telan shrugs off a quarter of it before his armor enchantments even kick in. This makes him the ultimate mage killer steward. If you live at Lakeview Manor, you're constantly plagued by the necromancer coven at the ritual altar just down the hill. A normal steward might get melted by their frost spells. Telan charges right through the blizzard. If you equip him with a shield of solitude, which grants more magic resistance, and a necklace of elemental suppression, he can achieve near total immunity to magic. He becomes the Terminator. He walks into a storm of lightning unflinching and puts a mace in the mage's face. But Telan is not just a bundle of stats. He has a history that adds deep narrative weight to his service. This leads to the obscure lore tidbit regarding his relationship with Isran, the leader of the Dawn Guard. Unlike the fresh recruits, Telan knows Isran. They were partners in the Vigilance of Stendarr years ago. Telan reveals that he left the Vigilance because he found Isran too extreme and difficult to work with. Think about that. Isran is a fanatic. For Telan to have worked with him, left him, and then returned when the vampire threat grew too great, speaks volumes about Telan's character. He is pragmatic. He didn't come back for Isran. He came back for the mission. He swallowed his pride and his distaste for Isran's methods because he knew the world needed saving. By making him your steward, you are giving him a third path. He doesn't have to serve the fanatic Isran, and he doesn't have to wander alone. He can serve a hero, you, who, hopefully, treats him with respect. Let's be honest. Anyone who can tolerate Isran for more than 5 minutes deserves a medal. Telan deserves a mansion. There is a fan theory that Telan represents the true paladin archetype, that the Vigilance of Stendarr failed to be. The Vigilants are often portrayed as incompetent or easily corrupted. Telan is competent, humble, and magically resistant. He is what a holy warrior should be. Placing him at a home like Heljarchen Hall, guarding your family against the supernatural, feels like the fulfillment of his oath. He's no longer hunting monsters in the dark. He is protecting the light of a home. In combat, Telan is a one-handed and shield specialist. He's similar to the housecarls in style, but his AI seems less prone to reckless charges. He fights with the caution of a veteran. He blocks, he waits, he strikes. And because he is a Breton, he has a slightly smaller character model than the Nords or Orcs. He isn't a towering brute. He is compact, efficient. It creates a visual underdog story every time he fights a giant, the smaller man holding the line against the titan. Like Ingjard and Durak, Telan in the remastered versions of the game has no level cap, or scales incredibly high. He will not become obsolete. He's a forever steward. Living with Telan is peaceful. His voice is calm, lacking the gravel of Durak or the eagerness of Jordis. He says, "I'm ready," and you believe him. He feels like the most adult of all the followers. He isn't seeking glory, he's just doing a job. One specific tactical scenario where Telan excels is the Dragon Priest encounter. If you are high level, Dragon Priest can attack or be found near your home, depending on mods or kiting. These enemies rely entirely on powerful destruction magic. Telan is the only warrior who can face tank a Dragon Priest effectively. He absorbs the punishment that would vaporize Eric or Aela. Ultimately, Telan is the choice for Telan, the player who values wisdom and resilience over brute strength. He is the survivor. He survived the Vigilance, he survived Isran, and he will survive whatever attacks your home. He is the Vigilant of the Dayspring, finally at rest in the twilight of his career, guarding a hearth that is warm and safe. And so, the roster is complete. From the dual scimitars of Reya in the forests of Falkreath, to the magic-resistant shield of Telan in the mountains of the Rift, we have walked the length and breadth of Skyrim to find those worthy of guarding your rest. The fire in the hearth has burned down to embers now, casting long, dancing shadows against the stone walls of your manor. Outside, the wind howls. Maybe it's the blizzard of the Pale, or the gentle rustle of the Falkreath pines, or the distant, rhythmic crashing of the waves against the Yarmarch swamp. It doesn't matter. The doors are locked. The shutters are drawn. You can hear the faint, rhythmic sound of heavy boots on the porch. Clank, clank, clank. It is the sound of safety. It is the sound of Durak checking his crossbow, of Mjoll sharpening her blade, of Valdemar practicing a ward spell in the moonlight. They are out there, standing between you and the dark. They are the watchers in the night, the iron wall that allows you to close your eyes and drift away. Let the worries of the Dragonborn fade. The civil war can wait until tomorrow. The dragons can wait. The vampires can wait. For now, you are home. The stew is warm, the bed is soft, and the guard is posted. The world is dangerous, yes, but not here, not tonight. Take a deep breath. Let the tension leave your shoulders. Listen to the hum of the night. You are safe. Sweet dreams.